Hi, this is Linda with Overbrook Quilt Connection, and this is the demo for block 6 of our Facets quilt. The block is called Star-Crossed, and so this is what it's going to look like when you're done. And I will show you how to make it. So you're going to start with two rectangles that are 2.5 by 10.5, and the 10.5, we're going to be subcutting those after you sew them together. So she's given you a little bit of extra fabric in that 10.5 inches. So anyhow, you're going to have a rectangle of your background that's 10.5 by 2.5, and gold and rust. So actually you're going to have two strips of the background. So one strip of the background will be sewn to the gold 10.5 inch by 2.5 inch rectangle, and the other one will be sewn to the rust one. Once you sew them, you're going to press them towards the color, the gold or the rust. And then you're going to subcut those into 2.5 inch segments, 4 of them out of each strip. And then you're going to take 2 of them and you're going to put them together into a 4 patch, and you're going to nest that seam there in the middle so your center will match when you're done. Then she instructs you to pinwheel the centers, so that means your seams will all be going in a circular fashion. And this unit, when you're done, should measure 4.5 inches. So if it doesn't, be sure and square that up, and I've shown you how to do that in the past. So you're going to have 2 of those and 2 of these units when you're done. Okay, then she has you do some gold 2.5 inch squares and some rust 2.5 inch squares, 2 of each. And you're just going to sew those into a 4 patch instead of doing the strips like we did before. So you'll sew each of those in pairs, you'll press them to the rust, and then you'll sew that center seam, you'll pinwheel it again like we did on the other one. And again, this unit should be 4.5 inches. Okay, now we get to these star point units. And you're going to have a dark teal square, which is 5 1/4 inches, and you're going to have a background square of 5 1/4 inches. Each of them you're going to cut diagonally on both corners. Okay, so you have 4 triangles out of those squares. And they'll have bias edges here, and this will be your straight of grain. Okay, you're going to sew a dark teal, and your teal may vary. You know, you can see mine does too. It's one of those gradation fabrics. So, so your teal, you know, the color of it will vary from piece to piece. But anyhow, it's best to start at this end, at the square corner, and sew out to the tip. Make sure that you have your orientation right on your, that your teal is on the right side. And you're going to press it towards the teal. Okay, then you've got these light teal squares of 4 7/8, 2 of them, and you're going to cut those once on the diagonal. So you're going to have these bigger triangles that have straight of grain on the 2 outside edges and 1 bias edge. So this edge and this edge are both biased. So you just need to make sure that you're careful as you're sewing this. Also, one thing that I do on this is I match up my outside edges on this instead of matching up this edge. And the reason I do that is because, as she says in the instructions, this unit has to be pretty exact. And you can see that this edge doesn't line up just perfectly. But I would sew it 1/4 inch here with these matching, okay? And then when you press it, you're going to press it towards the light big triangle. Okay, the reason I did that is because you're going to want to square this up a little bit, but if 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 you match those edges, this unit may end up being just a little bit too small. So that's why I did it with the outside edges together, okay? Seemed to work a little bit better for me. So then this unit, you're gonna wanna square it up, and it's gonna square up to 4.5 like all the other units. So again, this is one of those like we did last, or maybe a couple blocks ago, where you need to have one seam and then another seam coming into it. So you're going to put it on your ruler. Let me move this over so you can see through it. Okay, so you're going to put your seam line on the 45-degree line of your ruler, and you're going to make sure you have the 4.5. Okay, so I've lined it up with the 4.5. Okay, where this other seam is, make sure that comes down to the 4.5. Okay, so you want this to be in the corner, and you want that seam to be on the 4.5-inch mark. Okay, then if you have anything besides just the little tips, trim them off. And then you're going to spin it around and do the same thing. Make sure your 4.5 and your 4.5 are lined up. Since you've already trimmed those two sides, make sure your seam is on the line. And again, make sure your 4.5, that seam is right on the 4.5. And if you have to tug it, because it's fabric. It's not wood or something that doesn't give. So then you're going to trim these other two sides, okay? And you've got 4 of these that you'll trim up like that. Okay. Then you just make your columns just like we always do. Make sure that your gold is coming in. Make sure that your rust is coming in so they meet in the center. Also, I pressed everything towards the star point. Okay, so this one pressed towards the center. This one will press towards that, the 2 star points on the outer side. And then that would be, you'd have the other one in there. Okay, now, also on this unit, make sure the gold is going through and make sure the rust is going through. Okay, that's it. I hope you have good luck. Thanks.